100 years ago, America experienced the first Great Migration, where over 6 million African Americans packed up and moved from southern states like Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia to seek their fortunes up north, forever altering cities like Detroit, Philadelphia, and New York. Why did the Great Migration happen? Well, the main reason was the South was essentially an apartheid state, where violence against black people by white citizens and the government, pretty much everybody else, was completely sanctioned and unmoderated. So while it might have felt like home for a long time, the South was no longer a safe space. People had to move. We're seeing a similar Great Migration happening right now on social media, as millions of users move off the increasingly hostile Twitter X platform to BlueSky, seeking a better, safer, and less toxic internet environment. Now, look, we've seen internet migrations before. About 16 years ago, there was a massive move from MySpace to Facebook. But that was a slow and gradual process, nothing like the exodus that we're seeing today. There's been plenty of criticism of X Twitter since Elon Musk bought it for $44 billion 2 years ago and has essentially run it into the ground. He eliminated moderators, he let problematic people back on the platform, and let white nationalists run wild and harass people. But what we're seeing now is unprecedented. The day after the election, X lost its largest number of followers since Musk took over in 2022. And it intensified when users learned that the new terms of service that went into effect last Friday meant that their tweets and photos would be used to train X's AI robots. BlueSky added 1 million followers in the week after the election and now boasts 19 million users, up from just 9 million in September. And it's the #1 free app in Apple's App Store. Last Friday, bolstered by the conversation about Jake Paul and Mike Tyson, and the boxing match and all the problems with Netflix, BlueSky was the hub of social commentary and memes, cementing itself as the new hotspot for digital migrants. So, what does all of this tell us about the future of social media and BlueSky itself? Joining me now to discuss is Renee DiResta, Public Policy Associate Research Professor at Georgetown University and author of Invisible Rulers: The People Who Turn Lies into Reality. Professor, thank you so much for joining me this evening. So I find these sort of internet migrations fascinating because we're only one generation into social media really existing, right? Like, I remember Black Planet, I remember Friendster, but for the most part, most of this has only been around for about 20 years. So talk a little bit about why so many people are fleeing X and going to BlueSky. I mean, there are other things out there. There's Threads, there's Mastodon, but BlueSky seems to be the greatest beneficiary to this exodus.
So BlueSky has a lot of energy right now. One of the things that happens with social media migrations is that people go where they feel that the vibes are good, the people are there, there's going to be a lot to talk about, there's going to be a lot of new friends to make, content to see. One of the things that BlueSky is really good at is making people find the communities that they're interested in. People have an incredible amount of agency on BlueSky. You can subscribe to different types of feeds. I like gardening. I have a gardening feed on there. All I see is gardening when I click the button. It's really nice, though. It's a place to go and to feel that you have the ability to really tailor your experience. And also right now, it's a very positive place. I think a lot of people are there because they're looking for community. A lot of people are there because they want something that doesn't feel exhausting. They want something that doesn't feel caustic. They don't want to be in a gladiatorial arena. They want to be in an actual public square. And that's where I think they're looking to BlueSky to provide that right now.
And Professor, one of the other things is, like, more than 115,000 people deleted their Twitter accounts on Election Day. And again, many of them seem to have moved to a place like BlueSky. What is the impact sort of historically, anthropologically of these kinds of migrations, right? There are posts, there are moments, there are concert footage that was on MySpace that's been lost forever, right? Because people forgot their MySpace accounts. They don't have those pictures. They don't have that access. What could we be losing as people are moving away from Twitter as far as content, history, and knowledge of events that have occurred during the last 15 years when it was still a popular platform?
Well, I think that content is going to persist, right? There are things like the Internet Archive. There are places where a lot of that's going to continue to live and to be. One of the things that's going to happen, though, is that you're going to see, I think, less engagement within across different political groups. That was one of the things that for a very long time, Twitter was a place where everybody tried to be. And so this did lead to things like political fighting, one faction kind of battling another. It led to creating a lot of incentives to push other people out of the conversation at times. That was kind of the negative. But it also provided a place where you got a sense that everybody was at really big, important moments. I think that question of, is there going to be a place like that again where everybody is, that I think is the thing that unfortunately what we're going to start to see is much more smaller communities on smaller platforms, much more homogenous communities where people feel like they're on a site that was made for them or on a server that was made for them. And I do feel that that's not necessarily a good thing, right? It means that we're not engaging with each other. We're not engaging across communities anymore. We're retreating to our independent spaces. While we might be having more fun there, I think that's the thing that ultimately we lose by not all being in the same place anymore.
It is a shame that we're not all going to be able to stay together and be friends as we may have been able to do in the past. But I do think that's sort of a key problem, that when you have sites that are owned by billionaires, they sometimes become less friendly. Renee DiResta, Professor, thank you so much for joining us this evening on The ReidOut.